Have you ever found yourself pouring time, energy, and resources into helping others, only to feel completely drained with little or nothing to show for it? We've all been there. Sometimes we give and give to people who don't want help, or worse, people who remain stuck in their ways, uninterested in changing. The truth is, not everyone is meant to be helped. The Bible offers clear guidance on who we should and shouldn't help, not out of a lack of love, but because enabling behavior that God has not called us to support can be damaging. There's a fine line between being a blessing and being taken advantage of. We must differentiate between showing genuine compassion and enabling behavior that prevents growth. It's easy to feel guilty when we say no, especially when society often teaches us that helping others is always a good thing. But there are people who don't want help. They want someone to carry their burdens while they remain unchanged. If we're not careful, we can become exhausted by people who are simply manipulating our kindness. Even Jesus knew when to set boundaries. At times, he chose not to engage with certain individuals because they weren't ready to change. He wisely recognized when it was time to step back. John 2:24 and Matthew 7:6 remind us not to cast pearls before swine. Don't waste what's valuable on those who won't appreciate it. Let's dive deeper into the types of people the Bible warns us against when it comes to offering help. 1. The foolish. Proverbs 13:20 says, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." Foolish people are those who have the wisdom available to them, but choose to reject it. They might listen to advice, but choose to ignore it and continue repeating the same mistakes. Their lives become a cycle of poor decisions, and despite the counsel you offer, they continue to walk in their folly. Foolish people may even come to you repeatedly for help, but they don't want to change. They might ask for advice, yet never act on it. No matter how many times you offer wisdom or practical help, they'll continue down the same destructive path. This can be emotionally draining as your words are not received and your efforts feel wasted. Matthew 7:6. They won't appreciate what you're offering, and you'll end up feeling hurt and exhausted. There's a limit to how much we can do for the foolish. We must learn to recognize when our help is no longer having an impact, and when it's only prolonging their suffering. The most loving thing might be to step back and allow them to experience the natural consequences of their actions. Only then may they recognize the need for real change. 2. The manipulative and dishonest. Proverbs 12:22 tells us, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy." There are people who will manipulate your kindness using deceit and dishonesty to get what they want. They don't come to you with pure intentions. They are looking to use you for their own advantage. These manipulative individuals will feign need, but instead of genuinely seeking help, they seek an opportunity to exploit your generosity. These people often play on your emotions, using guilt, charm, or flattery to get you to do things for them. They may present themselves as victims, asking for your support, but in truth, they only want to take without any intention of giving back or changing. Proverbs 22:7 warns that the borrower is servant to the lender, and those who manipulate will often keep you in a perpetual cycle of giving, leaving you feeling drained. The Bible is clear that God detests deceit, and we should be careful not to fall into the trap of being manipulated. The key here is recognizing manipulation when it happens and setting strong boundaries. It's important to be compassionate, but not at the expense of allowing others to use your kindness for their own gain. When you see someone using your good nature for personal benefit, it's time to step back and protect yourself. 3. The lazy and complacent. Proverbs 10:4 states, "Lazy hands bring poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." There is a significant difference between someone who is struggling and someone who is simply too lazy to act. The lazy person is not motivated to take responsibility for their own life. They prefer to rely on others for help rather than put in the effort to improve their situation. This can be frustrating because no matter how much you offer, they won't take initiative or make the changes needed to better themselves. The Bible speaks clearly about the importance of hard work and personal responsibility. In 2 Thessalonians 3:10, Paul says, "If anyone will not work, neither should he eat." While this might seem harsh, it emphasizes a powerful principle. Help should not come at the expense of enabling laziness. By constantly rescuing someone from their own failure to act, we prevent them from learning important lessons that could lead to their personal growth. Helping them might make us feel good temporarily, but it can ultimately keep them in a state of complacency. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to step back and allow the lazy person to face the consequences of their actions. Only when they hit rock bottom may they feel motivated to change. 4. The proud and arrogant. Proverbs 16:18 warns, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." Pride is a dangerous thing. It makes people resistant to correction, and they become unwilling to receive help or guidance. Proud people are often self-sufficient in their own eyes. They believe they don't need anyone's help, especially not yours. This arrogance can be destructive in their lives, leading them down paths of isolation and eventual downfall. People consumed by pride often reject your counsel because they believe they know better. They may not express gratitude for your help, and their refusal to accept correction can make you feel like your efforts are in vain. The Bible teaches us that no amount of advice will change a proud heart. Proverbs 26:12 says, "Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them." In such situations, setting boundaries is the most loving thing we can do. We should not enable their pride by continually offering help that is rejected. By stepping back, we allow them to experience the natural consequences of their pride. This may be the wake-up call they need to recognize their need for humility and change. 5. The unrepentant. Hebrews 10:26 warns, "If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left." The unrepentant person is someone who has been exposed to the truth, but refuses to change. They continue in their sinful behavior without remorse, and no matter how much you try to help them, they are determined to stay the same. It's important to differentiate between someone who is truly struggling with sin and someone who is unrepentant. The unrepentant person has no desire to change and is often just looking for sympathy or support to continue in their sin. While we are called to love them, we should not enable their behavior. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to withhold help and allow them to face the consequences of their actions. Only then may they realize the seriousness of their sin and their need for repentance. 6. The wicked and sinful. Proverbs 1:10 tells us, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not give in to them." There are people who are not just living in sin, but actively promoting it. These individuals have made a conscious decision to live in rebellion against God and are often leading others astray. The Bible warns against supporting or enabling this kind of behavior. Helping these individuals might not only be ineffective, but could also make us complicit in their sin. Romans 1:32 warns that people who embrace sin and encourage others to do the same, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. It's crucial that we recognize when helping someone would simply enable their sinful lifestyle. While we are called to love and pray for such individuals, we must also be wise in how we support them. Sometimes, the best way to help is by stepping back and allowing them to experience the consequences of their rebellion, as it may lead them to repentant change. The ungrateful. Luke 17:11-19 tells the story of the 10 lepers. Jesus healed 10 lepers, but only one returned to thank him. The lack of gratitude from the other 9 deeply grieved Jesus, because gratitude is the natural response to a blessing. People who are ungrateful fail to recognize the value of the help you provide. They may take everything they can from you, but never express thanks or appreciation. Dealing with ungrateful people can be exhausting, as no matter how much you give, it will never be enough for them. The Bible warns against this kind of ingratitude, saying it's a sign of a generation that has lost its way. 2 Timothy 3:2. Ungrateful people often take others for granted, and your kindness will always feel like a bottomless pit. No matter how much you give, they will never acknowledge your sacrifice. In these cases, it's important to recognize when someone is not valuing your help. Sometimes setting boundaries and stepping back is necessary to protect your emotional energy and to avoid being drained by their lack of appreciation. The Bible calls us to help and serve others, but we must do so wisely. There are times when we must say no, not because we lack compassion, but because continuing to enable certain behaviors will only hinder growth. Prayer for discernment is essential, as God will guide us in knowing when to step in and when to step back. God is the ultimate healer, and sometimes He allows people to experience the consequences of their actions before they can truly change. Protect your peace and be mindful of where you invest your time, energy, and resources. In all of this, wisdom is key. Knowing when to help and when to let go is one of the greatest gifts you can give both to yourself and to others.